beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I love being in woodland, because you are in woodland when you think about it. You're on a beach, you're on moorland, you're on grassland, but when you're in woodland, you're enveloped with all of this life. And I find that really cozy and comforting. I love the fact that I'm sort of sneaking through a sponge of life. Every surface is just erupting with energy. It's a beautiful place to be. Next week, we've got some real treats coming up for you, some more nest cameras. I'm going to tease you with one now. Look at this. This is a common sandpiper. It's down in Wales, and this is one of the birds coming back to brood the young in the nest. Characteristic bit of tail bobbing there, and then it settles down. What a lovely shot. And I've got to tell you, there's already been some drama on that nest, and we'll be keeping you up to date next week. And today's programme is all about drama, but what about a dramatic transformation? What about one of the most dramatic transformations that takes place in the animal kingdom? Smoltification. So which species smoltify? Well, it's the Atlantic salmon, because they are what we call anadromous fish. They spend part of their time in freshwater and part of their lives in seawater, salty water, allowing them to exploit, quite literally, the best of both worlds. So how do they do this? Well, as you know, Atlantic salmon swim back up the rivers they were spawned in, and they lay their eggs and they hatch into fry, and they begin to grow into parr. And parr are the small salmon that live in these rivers. And thanks to Chris Conroy from the Nest Salmon, what is he? Let me just get this right, it's quite complicated. Nest District Salmon Fishery Board, we've got these pictures of parr beneath the surface of the water. And these little fish live in these Scottish rivers, and there they're feeding on whatever they can find that drifts down the river. And you can see their characteristic colouring. They've got what we call parr marks, those bars that run down the side of the body, those beautiful little red spots. And that's all about camouflage, as they're trying to blend in with the background. And at this time of their lives, they're quite territorial, they're solitary. And if any other fish come into their territories, they do anything they can to push them away. So there's quite a lot of posturing. They'll sidle up to one another, they'll do a bit of showing off. And if that doesn't work, they'll chase the other fish and nip it and chase it away. A little bit of fishy violence. And this is all about monopolising that small amount of food that is in the river. So the question, therefore, is why do the salmon come all the way into the river to reproduce when they need to grow quite rapidly and there isn't much food there? Well, the simple reason is that there aren't that many predators in the fresh water compared to the sea. However, there are some. And Chris has got these beautiful pictures of goosanders foraging away on the riverbed. And look how they've transformed their bodies into these mercurial forms. And look, one there gets a smolt. Look at that. Fantastic. And there are other predators as well, things like seals, of course, and even larger fish like the trout as well. So, after a period of time, these fish need to move out to get the growing done. It's then that they need to go through this process of smoltification. And what triggers that is a number of things. Firstly, they've got to get to 12 centimetres inside. Nothing will happen until they're at least 12 centimetres. And then the increasing daylight in spring triggers that process to start, with a little bit of help from warmer water. And that transformation is quite remarkable. They start to put guanine into their scales and skin, and there this chemical crystallises to make them silvery like this. So gone are those bars on their body whilst they were parr, and when they're smolts they go silvery. They also change their behaviour. They're not hanging around on the bottom anymore. They're rising up further into the water, and they're also not solitary either. They're beginning to school together. They're tolerant of one another's presence. So this is not just a physical change in their colouring, it's also a significant change in their behaviour too. And this process, this smoltification, remarkably only takes 3 weeks. So once they've smoltified, then it's the next stage. And this means that they're going to move from the rivers all the way down into the sea. So they start in those rivers, and they begin to drift down in these schools of fish here, and they will head out to sea. And it's there that they need to complete the most remarkable part of the process, which is the physiological changes that take place, because moving from freshwater to saltwater means that they have to deal with the loss of water, the gain of salts, and in order to do that they have to concentrate their urine and also use special cells which develop in their gills to excrete that salt. Why do they want to move into the sea? Well, because there's more food there. That's where they get all their growing done. They move down as these little smolts and they come back as those massive salmon because there's a lot more food there, and at this stage they can deal with a little bit more predation. But the most remarkable thing is that there is a window. Once they've gone through smoltification, they've got to get to the sea, and if they don't get there in time for any reason, a barrier of some kind, they can actually partially desmoltify. They won't go completely back to the par with the little stripes on, but they will revert to a type of fish that can live in fresh water. What about that? What an astonishing transformation. Imagine that. That's a bit like us growing up, turning into adults and thinking, do you know what? I'm not very happy with the responsibilities of adulthood, the mortgage, the car, the insurance, the education of the kids. I'm going to regress and be an adolescent